everybody, what's going on? What's up? What's happening? How are you? And welcome back to the lab. Pastor Tyler here. And in the lab, anything can happen. In the lab today, we are talking about gratitude. And one of the best ways to show gratitude is saying thank you. Now, a way you can say thank you, one of my favorite ways is, you ready for this? It's a shout out. So let's say somebody does something special for you. You're like, hey, yo, shout out to you for doing that. You made me feel special.
Yes, you did. And shout out to you, and shout out to you, and shout out to you, and shout out to Jesse, and shout out to Jerry, and shout out to Jamal, and shout out to everybody else in there. Sir, what, Jay? Shout out to Pastor Collins, shout out to my mama, shout out to the people on the iPad, shout out to my rocks that I had last week. Where they at? There you are. This rock in particular.
Shout out to this rock.
That's the celebratory shout out music to everybody who may see this. But I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Shout out to you, shout out to you, shout out to everybody in the lab, shout out to our lab assistants, shout out to our lab security, shout out to our Imagineers and our engineers, and Pastor Tyler. Well, that's all the shout outs I can think of right now, so shout out.
Hey Kids Life, Miss Paula here, and I am so excited to share with you our memory verse found in Psalms 136:1. It says, "Give thanks to the Lord, because he is good. His faithful love continues forever. Now, I want you guys to say it after me. Give thanks to the Lord because he is good. His faithful love continues forever. Good job, Kids Life. Now, let's go back to the main lab floor.
I think the coast is clear. A lot of shouting out going on. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know what? We got to keep it going. I think he shouted out some lab assistants like twice. Anyway, one of the things that Jesus did that I love was he always told stories. And the reason he told stories was so that people would learn what God was actually like. You see, Jesus knew God, but he wanted other people not to miss out on how awesome God was. And in his stories, he used everyday things so people would understand. So check out this story that Jesus told to his close friends about what heaven is like. I'll see you guys in a sec.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how he created us and loves us so much that he made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. And now for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Matthew, chapter 20, verses 1 through 15.
While Jesus taught in many different ways, he often shared the most important truths as stories. He used the things and animals and situations in people's everyday lives to help them understand things that were bigger. One day, Jesus explained to his closest friends what the kingdom of heaven was like, and he used a story to help it connect. Now, if he told that story to us today in our world right now, I think it would go a little something like this. There once was a man who owned a large vineyard.
Here at Grape Escape Vineyards, we specialize in red, white, and green grapes.
One bright autumn day, the man called in his manager to find out how his harvest was doing.
It's doing great.
Thanks a bunch. We shall pick the grapes immediately before the beetles nibble them up.
That's some good raisoning.
The next morning, the vineyard owner rose while it was still dark and hurried to the center of town. He arrived at around 6 a.m. and there were people still standing around noshing on grape jelly muffins.
Are you looking for work?
Yes, indeed. How much do you pay?
$100 for the day.
Precisely perfect. Let us proceed.
The owner led the workers back to his vineyard.
Baskets, hats, don't squash the grapes.
Oh, well, what happens if we do that?
They might whine a little.
The vineyard owner wanted to be sure that the beetles wouldn't ruin his precious grape harvest, so around 3 hours later at 9 o'clock, he returned to the town center and found more people lined up for work.
You come pick grapes for me. I'll pay you well.
Good deal. Let's go.
The workers were all picking as fast as they could, but there were still long rows to harvest, so the vineyard owner went back to the town center at 12 o'clock noon 3 hours later, and there were still plenty of workers standing around.
Come, help out in my vineyard.
And after the new set of workers had worked for 3 hours, the vineyard owner returned to the town square again at 3 o'clock.
Need some more grape pickers, you in?
The blazing sun beat down as the vineyard owner added the new workers to his crew. One of the men hired at dawn wiped sweat off his face as he sipped his water.
Showing up for work in the afternoon. What a terrible work ethic.
The first workers returned to picking grapes, filling basket after basket. But even though it was still 5 o'clock, the vineyard owner returned to the town square where he still found plenty of people hanging around counting cockroaches and looking bored.
Why have you been standing here all day?
No one, hired us.
I'll hire you. Come work in my vineyard.
For the final hour of the workday, everybody pitched in. Whew! As the last baskets of grapes were brought up, the owner called to his manager.
Just look at all these beautiful grapes, all freshly harvested.
A great job, if I do say so.
Pay the workers. Start with the ones I hired last of all.
So the manager pulled out his cash box and lined up the workers. He started with the ones who only picked grapes for an hour.
Here you go. $100.
Like totally rad, man.
At the other end of the line, the workers who began at dawn began doing some quick math.
$100 for 1 hour of work? Huh, that means we're about to get over $1,000.
The manager continued to hand out pay packets to the workers who started at 3 o'clock.
$100.
And noon.
$100.
And 9 o'clock in the morning.
$100.
Huh. Okay.
By the time the workers who started at 6 a.m. reached the front of the line, they were getting a little bit worried.
You're paying us what's fair for working all day, right?
Yep. $100.
What? Preposterous.
The early morning workers stalked off to find the vineyard owner.
You paid those hooligans who only worked an hour the same as us, even though we sweated all day picking your grapes. Just look at this crispy sunburn.
Friends, didn't you agree to $100 for the whole day?
That is a technicality.
Do you feel cheated because I gave so freely to the other workers? Don't I have a right to do what I want with my own money?
But it's not fair.
Take your money and go. I want to give the ones I hired last the same pay I gave you.
The early workers glared and skulked away, cash in hand. They had let the owner's generosity to someone else ruin their day. Jesus' story made it clear. God gives freely to everyone. Rather than focusing on what you don't have, adjust your attitude. Choose to look at what you do have.
Wow, that's a pretty good story, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, just think about it for a second.
Think about what?
Think about the entire story.
Okay.
This man here, like, who was the main character in the story, asked for people's help, right?
Right.
So he came first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
asking people for help.
So they work in the morning.
They work in the morning.
Yeah.
Then he went through the entire day asking folks for help, right?
Right.
There
More
were-
people came.
Exactly. But later in the day, there were
9
people who
o'clock.
like worked at like maybe like 9 o'clock p.m.
Right.
They still got paid the same amount as the people who worked in the morning.
Well,
That don't make no sense.
the point Jesus was trying to make was like that's how God is toward us. That no matter who we are, no matter when we come, He gives to us freely.
Even though some people may have been working longer than the others,
Yeah.
couldn't be me. Couldn't be me.
Well, that's why it's God. You see, He loves us, and we have to ask Him to adjust our attitude. Because it'd be real easy to be like, like it would be tough. It'd be like, hey, they got here before me, and what about, and it's easy to find things to have an attitude about. But the greatest thing we could do here, the win here, is to have an attitude of gratitude. Because God could just pick and choose who he helps or who He gives to, but He doesn't. He gives to all of us freely. And for that, my friend, that is what I am thankful for. So the big idea today, and maybe you can take this too, is to adjust your attitude. And sometimes it takes stopping and talking to God and asking Him, God, help me adjust my attitude to an attitude of gratitude. Yes, an attitude of gratitude. So how about we do that really quick? Let's just pray and ask God to help us adjust our attitude to an attitude of gratitude. God, we thank You that You love us and that You give freely, that You don't show favorites, Father, but we're all Your favorite. And God, help us when it seems easy to have an attitude, help us flip it around and to find something to be thankful for so that we can have an attitude of gratitude. God, You are so good, You're amazing, and we love You. Thank You for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, so let's break this down a little bit more in our Imagineer groups. You good?
I'm good. I'm adjusting my attitude to an attitude of gratitude.
There we go. All right, see you guys.